And welcome to the Jimmy Daytona Show. Tonight, I have Heather Taylor, a licensed dietitian of over 22 years. She specializes in gastrointestinal health and weight management, but sees patients with a variety of issues and of all ages. She loves using functional lab testing to get to the root cause of ailments that has found a thorough assessment that can sometimes just be as good. She recently started a pilot project with the New Hampshire Army Guard helping soldiers meet their readiest requirements. She has 2 teenage children to keep her busy, and she isn't talking about nutrition. Welcome, Heather, and I am so happy to have you.
Yay, fun. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. And tell me how you got into nutrition to begin with.
Oh, that's such a long story. Well, I think there's a few influences. I have, a pretty healthy family growing up. My grandfather's a chiropractor and really into nutrition, like most chiropractors are. And so I was always around just really kind of healthy eating. But the biggest thing for me, I think, was my high school years, when you start getting to like, what am I going to do with my life? And you're like going to graduate, you got to figure out what you're going to do. I knew I was going to do something with health, but I wasn't quite sure what area I was going to go into, but nutrition seemed really interesting to me. I just found like the science of like, what does vitamin C actually do to my body? Why should I be eating certain types of foods? How does this work inside of me? How does it protect me? How does it heal me? How does it keep me from getting heart disease and all that stuff? But mostly I was in sports. And so I actually thought I was going to go towards the eating disorder route because I had seen a couple of my but high school buddies actually kind of go down that road. And then I got really interested in what is that about, body image and what is it that drives that, what triggers that in people. So the psychology part of that was really interesting to me. But of course, I get into college, I go to UNH and I'm like, oh gosh, there's so much I could do with nutrition. Is this really the direction I want to go? And then by the time I graduated UNH, I was pretty much heading into the direction of community nutrition. So really helping low-income families. We knew that, back then, of course, this was, a couple decades ago, we knew that there was already an obesity issue. And we already knew that children were also showing this, high incidence of like type 2 diabetes, and we had obesity and it's starting younger and younger. And I said, oh my goodness, what can I do to help this? And so that's kind of where I started. And then it kind of morphed from there. And I've done a bunch of different things from working in gyms, selling nutrition programs to, I worked for WIC. I was the Head Start manager for a while. That was Southern New Hampshire. And then I've also done working at the juvenile corrections facility as their wellness person coordinator. So I've been all over the place. And of course, only about maybe 12 years ago is when I started my Eat Well and Beyond business. And that was my own private practice, setting up with insurances and all that stuff. So that was an interesting development as well. So I've been kind of all over the place, but definitely been talking about nutrition for a long time.
That's wonderful. What are some of your biggest success stories over the years in terms of preventing disease or having, big weight loss success for people?
Yeah. And I think probably one of the hardest is weight loss for most people. Some people come to see me for a variety of reasons, whether they have high cholesterol, they have diabetes, or they've got a lot of gastrointestinal stuff going on. They can't quite figure out what's happening. Food allergies, food sensitivities, all that stuff. I think the hardest one is trying to lose weight because some people really do have addiction issues with food. So that's a very like behavioral kind of focused area. But I think probably my biggest successes are going to be with the people who are reversing their diabetes, right? So having type 2 diabetes, not the one where they're really kind of dependent on insulin, that would be type 1 autoimmune, but type 2 diabetes, watching people reverse that and feeling amazing and coming off of medications is awesome. I always love seeing people come off of medications. And I probably, the next one would probably be all my digestive disorder people that are coming in and having all kinds of disruption, motility issues, a lot of discomfort, distension, that's really kind of affecting their quality of life. So getting to the root cause of that, really is it's kind of fun. You play like a detective with people, trying to figure out what's really causing that, and then restoring that. And it can take a lot of time. So as long as you have someone that really wants to work with you and know like, hey, this might take 6 months to a year to really get over all of this and discover what you can do and how we can fix your digestion. I mean, that's one of the hardest parts for some people is they would just want to have the quick fix and have everything like better for them. Like, just give me a pill and make it go away, right? So those are probably my two favorites, is really reversing the diabetes and then helping people with their digestion.
Yeah, if you have type 2 or pre-diabetes, do you have any good suggestions for people to try to reverse it?
Yeah, so here with type 2 diabetes, it's kind of like I just tell people it's kind of like you're just sugar sensitive. Like, just like if someone had a food allergy, they would be sensitive to that food, right? Like, you kind of have to avoid those foods that you're sensitive to. So it's kind of what happens with diabetes. It's very inflammatory and toxin based. So getting toxins out of your life as much as possible is really important. And that goes for like your foods. So you don't want to be having lots of additives and preservatives and things like that. But the second thing is, if you're sugar sensitive, you have to eat pretty low glycemic. And so I do a lot of education around what is low glycemic, what kinds of foods are going to spike my blood sugars, what are going to be more what I call slower carbs or slower acting sugars in your body. And, some people kind of go try out some like extreme stuff. They might be doing keto or they're doing intermittent fasting. And sometimes those can be very helpful, not always in the long term. But I try to use basically, paleo Mediterranean style eating. We're eating a lot of really good antioxidant rich foods, a lot of like green vegetables, right? We're not doing tons of potato. We're not doing like pasta and breads. Those are very quick carb type things. So teaching people where their quick carbs are or where their hidden sugars are is really important. They might think, oh, I'm having peanut butter, it's a fat. And then they look at the ingredients and it's the second thing on the ingredient list is cane sugar or high fructose corn syrup. And so teaching them how to like really look at their products and really know how to like look at a food label, even knowing like what fruits, like some fruits are very high in sugar, even though they're really healthy for us, versus another type of fruit that isn't going to cause a sugar spike. So learning about all the different fruits and vegetables that you could do, avoiding a lot of the grains, refined sugars, refined rice, cereals, all that stuff, which can be really hard if someone's used to eating all of those all the time and they've never really eaten differently. I'm really teaching them how to eat a different way, which means I got to find stuff that people really do enjoy, or how do they put, recipes together or menus together to make sure that they're eating something that's like kind of fun, working with like seasonings and herbs and spices and stuff like that, rather than just trying to eat a lot of sugar all the time. So that's probably the biggest trick right there, is to learn low glycemic eating. And there's lots of lists and stuff out there. You can pull up little, forms. You can stick it on your refrigerator, or like, okay, these are my high glycemic, these are my low glycemic. Pick from the low. So that's pretty much where I tend to go. And so they'll see a huge difference. And if you throw in some exercise with that too, exercise kind of acts like insulin. So it does pull those sugars into your cells. So you can use that for energy. So exercise has to be part of the program. And if they're having pain or they're have neuropathy, or there's something going on where it's making very difficult for them to move and exercise, then that's where we got to reach out and look for what are some alternatives, whether it be a PT or a swimming class or something like that, where you're not going to have a lot of pain while you're doing it. And that's usually the hardest thing for most people, is trying to get back into doing some type of movement routine when they're having joint pain and aches and things like that are kind of distracting them from their goals. So we might have to use some supplementation. We might have to do some, pain relief type stuff too.
Well,
That's where I go with that.
I kind of have I have a vision, as far as my own health is concerned, that it's a three-legged stool with nutrition, exercise, and sleep.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations on the exercise and the sleep front for the listeners?
So exercise is pretty much anything that gets you moving, anything that you enjoy doing, right? From dancing to hitting the gym and lifting some weights, to doing band work, to doing body weight stuff. I think as we age, we really do have to focus more on the strength and making sure we're keeping that lean body mass as much as we can. I know a lot of people who just like to go for walks all the time, and that's great because it's great exercise. But we also need to do some type of muscle stimulating stuff too. So trying to get people to not only do their cardio stuff, but to incorporate some type of resistance somewhere. And that's different for everybody's a little bit different in terms of what they can do, whether they have an injury or they've never lifted a weight before, or they don't even know how to use a band. Teaching them proper form and all that stuff is really important. So I really like when people get with a trainer if they can, so they don't hurt themselves, or if they have PT, they kind of work on what kinds of exercises they can be doing. That's really important. And like I said, anything that makes you move, anything that's fun, and it doesn't have to be something that you're going, 2 hours every single day. I've lots of people who just do half an hour kind of cardio or walking, maybe a couple times a week of doing some strength. And you just start where you're at. If you've never done it and you can't even do 10 minutes, then you just start with 5, right? And you work your way up. But having goals is really important. So progressive exercise is it's kind of the name of the game, right? You want to start somewhere. You don't want to do nothing. Got to do something, and eventually you start training your body, right? So now your body can do more, and it's a lot easier and all of that stuff. So got to meet with people where they're at, though. Definitely can't like just jump into any kind of strongman competition if you've never picked up a weight before.
Wow. Yeah, I know that you mentioned some supplements too. What are some of
Yeah.
your favorites? Or sometimes food can only get you so far. Like, what vitamins, herbs, and supplements have you had a lot of success with your
Well,
patients?
as you know, we're supposed to be getting like 5 to 8 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, which nobody really does. So I'm always trying to get people to eat more fruits and vegetables as much as possible. So, having a good quality multivitamin might be good. There's not a lot of good quality ones that you can just get off the shelf, though. So it's actually not as easy as people think to find some good stuff. And my other ones are just some natural anti-inflammatories too. And it all depends on what you're using the supplements for, right? So if you're using a supplement because you want to help your immune system, well, maybe you want to do mushroom extracts, or maybe you want to have something with zinc in it, or like we're having this whole COVID thing, right? So one of my favorites that I have right now is an immune formula, which has like the quercetin, the zinc, the NAC. NAC is N-acetylcysteine, which is a precursor for glutathione. And glutathione is this like major antioxidant. And what happens with us when we have a lot of inflammation, or if we get really ill, we wipe through that really fast and it gets really low. So now we're not as protected. And so it's one of my favorites because most of us, we can have pretty low glutathione. The B vitamins are always good. Those are great for energy. And my favorite anti-inflammatories are fish oil or omega-3s and my turmeric stuff. So turmeric is one of my faves. Those are super great for,
Mine too.
yeah, right?
Yeah, I'd spray it all over my food. That and the black pepper.
Yeah, there
Nice.
you go. Yeah, you can add it with food, and then they have more of the concentrated stuff and tablets and stuff too, where you can use it more of like a therapeutic dose. And then I have all kinds of stuff. I got like mitochondrial support, like shakes that you can do. I've got detox stuff. People are post-holiday trying to get out of their own way and, help their liver
Dry January.
get back to where it's supposed to be, right? Yeah. But the biggest thing is I always tell people you're always going to get most of your nutrition from your food. It's always assimilated. Excuse me, it's assimilated better from food. So if you're going to have omega-3s, have some salmon, you know what I mean? So that's the only thing about food is it is kind of magical. I always tell people you don't want to just replace everything with just supplements. So the food usually needs to come first. And that is the primary focus when I'm working with people.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, I can speak for myself. I've had a lot of success working with you the last 5 months. I'm down about 15 pounds. I've incorporated a lot of recommendations into my everyday routine, and
Yeah.
I'd recommend it to anybody. I was going to ask, how'd you get linked up with the National Guard? It seems to be a big passion of yours, and you've had success working with the soldiers. Like, how
Yeah.
they reacted to that and to you, and what are they learning?
So yeah, really interesting, right? Well, I have lots of military friends. I personally have never joined the military, and they're like my heroes. I think they're amazing people, and I have tons of veteran friends and things too. So what's interesting about that is like COVID hit, and as a sole practitioner, with my business Eat Well and Beyond, here I am like, okay, what's going to happen? And people were really scared, right? They didn't want to go into anybody's offices. They kind of just, super isolated. And luckily dietitians got the ability to do telehealth. So that was kind of cool. I'm like, oh, good. At least I can, at least talk to people through my screen, even if I can't get them on my scale. So that was actually one of the, the good things that came out of COVID for dietitians, because we never used to be allowed. So we were allowed, and we can keep doing it, which is great. So telehealth was awesome. But at that time, it was a really kind of slow time for me. And I was like, I got to pay my bills. So I just like, I like to check in on what's going on out in the world and see if there's any other openings, because there's always something going on with nutrition, from nutrition companies, like supplement companies are always hiring. There's always something. Maybe a school is hiring, a dietitian to work with the menus. There's always something going on. So I said, let's check. Maybe there's going to be something fun. And I saw this pop up in Indeed, and I was like, the Army Guard. I'm like, that's right next door to me, because I am in Pembroke, and that the main reservation is in Concord, which is literally like 10 minutes down the road for me. I'm like, well, wouldn't that be really convenient? And it was just saying, hey, we're doing a pilot and we need a dietitian to be training all of our soldiers and all this stuff. So their goal is to become one of the top 10 in the nation. They want New Hampshire to be like awesome. They want them to be showing that their readiness for their soldiers are awesome. They have tons of behavior specialists for them too. They've got great referral, great leadership, but they're missing the fitness and nutrition piece. And the Army is moving away from, hey, let's just go do some sit-ups and go for a sprint and some push-ups or whatever, and you're done. Now they're very tactical. So they do tactical type stuff. So like you think about people working out like CrossFit, that's kind of where they're moving. Like they have to be really, really in shape. They got to be able to, carry things and go under things and go over stuff and all this kind of crazy stuff. So they're not just doing a little push up and a sit up and a run. Now they're doing like a deadlift, and they're doing, carries, and they're doing sled pulls, and they're doing all this kind of fun stuff. But the other one is their retention. So people will, if they don't meet their weight requirements, so they do get measured. Okay. Like imagine that going to work and having people measure your BMI to see if you're going to get paid. So that's what they have to do, though, is they have to stay in shape. They have to meet a weight for height requirement. So they are under a lot of pressure. And if they don't meet those requirements, they can lose promotions and all kinds of other things. And they won't, meet what they need to for their requirements, and even moving up the ranks, right? So they want to stay in there. They want to get all the perks, which the Army gives you a lot of perks. Okay. So they're like, we need retention, and we need people to want to be in the Army. So how do we support their health? Well, they hired me, and they hired a strength and conditioning coach as well. So we work together, and I basically just do the same thing I do with all my patients. We sit down, we do a body composition with them to see where they're at, and then we form, food plans. And I just talk about, we're going to be eating this. If you've got to gain muscle, we have to eat this much. If you want to lose body fat, we got to eat this way. So it's a lot of just training and educating. A lot of them are young, but it is all ages. And interestingly enough, working with younger people, like in their 20s, they're just still eating like fast food, haven't quite learned how to cook yet, like stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting because, I have a lot of my older patients with my private practice, whereas here I've got the younger ones, right? And so they're pretty motivated. But I'll see more of the people as they start to get a little older, they start to put on a little extra weight. Maybe they're not working out as much as they used to, but they're under a lot of pressure now. They do have to meet some pretty intense standards now. ACFT is pretty intense.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's quite the story. And, I'm proud of you for working, on behalf of our soldiers. And I'm glad you have a lot of success with them.
It's pretty nice. It's nice going, oh, thank you for your service, and here's my service to you.
No, that's wonderful. Do you partner with other health practitioners? Do you if you ever you partner, like what things do you guys work together on, like, or what tasks?
Okay, so I have so many different practitioner friends. I've got my functional medicine practitioner friends, right from their MDs to nurse practitioners to just metabolic gurus and other nutritionists, right? And they can be in the UK, or maybe they're over in Australia, or they're over in California, or wherever. They're all over the place. And it's great because we can rattle off cases with each other. Hey, what are you guys doing for this? Hey, what is this? Are you using this kind of supplement? What's the new lab that you're doing that's really, really awesome that I can get a lot of information about that isn't going to charge them an arm and a leg, that kind of stuff. But just locally within the wellness center that I'm in Manchester, we have a DO, which is a doctor of osteopathy, which I think we're actually going to start doing some streams, which will be kind of fun. And he does a lot of neuromuscular stuff. My brother's a PT, and so he's the physical therapist in the center. Then we've got some massage therapists. But I work with all kinds of people. I have naturopaths that I love down in Nashua that will refer back and forth. I've got another naturopath that does a lot of women's health, so like hormonal stuff I'll kind of send to her. So it really depends on what the patient needs, because they might come in and I do a really full assessment with them. Like I'm going to ask them about what they eat, if they sleep, what their stress is like, right? I go through everything. So it helps me kind of figure out, well, maybe you need this other support, you need additional information, you need to go see this person, right? Oh, I'm not moving, my foot hurts. Okay, you're gonna go see my brother, he's a PT and he's gonna fix your foot for you. Stuff like that, right? Like, oh, I'm so stressed out. Hey, good, there's a massage therapist. You should probably go get a massage.
Yeah, you just go right in the building, you're all set.
Yeah, it's all about, like trying to figure out what's going on with somebody, but also not listening to excuses. Like finding out like, okay, let's not talk about what doesn't work. Let's talk about what does, right? And let's find a way to get you there from point A to point B. It's really about getting them unstuck, right? So I love it, having all these different resources. My nurse practitioner buddy, Jim, he runs the Diabetes and Lifestyle Center in Londonderry, and he's my diabetes guy. So if I know someone's having issue with their diabetes, I want them to go talk to him. He gets people in pretty quick, like within the week. So I love using him, whereas, the traditional healthcare system right now is just, it's overloaded.
Yeah,
so you might get an appointment
reasons.
like, yeah, you'll get an appointment like 3 months later, right? And I talk to a lot of the diabetes people that I see have never talked to a dietitian before. Maybe they were recommended to go see one, but never did. It's like, oh my goodness, you've had diabetes and never talked to anybody about your nutrition. That's not good. So I know that a lot of people are falling through the cracks and they're really not getting the support that they need. And once they realize that they can control a lot of the stuff with the way that they eat, it's very empowering for them. So that's kind of the name of the game. And so I always try to make sure I'm meeting up with people who are really, really supportive of lifestyle. And not just pushing, drugs and medications. There's a time and a place for those, but a lot of our issues are really behavior based around the way we eat, sleep and drink, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, what do you like? Do you have any recommendations as far as sleep, stress management, what to drink or not drink? In terms of staying hydrated, or booze or soda or things of that nature.
What kind of booze should I drink? Well, so sleep is super important, right? Because that kind of sets us up for having good energy throughout the day and like normalizing our hormones, and especially for us females. But when we're feeling really tired, we tend to like make horrible choices with our food. So sleep is huge. There's tons of studies about like darkness therapy, but that's when they kind of looked at, well, maybe we don't need to have people literally in the dark at 6 o'clock at night. The amber glasses, the blue blocking glasses, yes, you can get. So that's my favorite. And I tell people you should just at least try it, put them on at 6 o'clock at night, watch your TV if you need to, because I know people are not going to shut their screens off, and see if they can get that melatonin to come up, and so they get into a better sleep. But the stress management piece, there's so many things you can do for that. I have friends that are coaches and stuff that do stress management. They even teach, emotional freedom technique and ways to calm yourself. And really teaching people how to get control of their own stress. Breathing techniques are huge. So people think it's kind of a joke. And I'm like, what? Like meditation and yoga is actually based around breathing. So you don't need to go and do a yoga class. You can just learn how to do breathing. And most people don't. They have tight diaphragms. They don't get deep belly breaths. And so they are stressed out because their brains are going, 50 miles an hour. So that's probably one of my favorite things. Calming music, anything like that. There's apps that people can listen to that helps with like guided meditation. Those things are all really important, but it's a practice, right? Like you have to do it on a fairly regular basis to get benefits out of it. So those are probably my two biggest things, is stress and sleep. And hopefully that helps with people getting organized with their food, right? There's nothing worse than being stressed out, running around all over the place and like not even be able to think about what you want to make for dinner. So they all kind of go together.
Yeah, I've been there. I understand completely what you're saying.
It's super common. We have like a total sleep issue in our country.
Yeah, we definitely do. I just think people just try to just skimp on it, or or if they try to fall asleep, either can't on the front end or wake up way too early on the back end and have a hard time falling asleep, which sadly has been the case of me of late. So that's one of the many things that I'm looking for to work on. What kind of endeavors sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say, in terms of drinking stuff, it'd be water.
Yeah.
People need to drink filtered water. That's pretty much it. Like, that's all you really need. I know we like our coffee and all that fun stuff, but you have to be careful of how much caffeine we drink. And obviously alcohol is a toxin, so you just don't want to do that too much.
Yeah, do you like sparkling water at all, or just the distill?
Yeah, I'll do some sparkling water every now and then. I find that it doesn't really hydrate me as much though. And so I like to just do straight up water. Electrolytes are good too. So if you ever want to, get into doing electrolytes for minerals, our magnesium and potassium and all those wonderful things. I like this company called Superior Electrolytes. I love theirs. I
Oh
think it's
wow.
pretty yummy. So people get really bored with just water. And I was like, oh, go get some Superior Electrolytes. They have like grape flavor and raspberry. It's wicked yummy. And you're getting extra minerals at the same time. So kind of nice.
Any good things to mix in the water, or because if it's like too plain and too boring, people ain't going to drink it. It'll
Yeah.
go by
So
the wayside.
the electrolytes are great just because they are flavored, but if people want to get into just doing infused stuff, they even have those infuser water bottles that you can get where you can stick fruit in it, or you can put like lemons and limes, or you can put cucumbers and mint, and that will actually flavor your water. They always say, be careful with a lot of acid. You don't want to have like tons of lemon water all day, just because it can kind of wear on your teeth a little bit because you're having acid. But yeah, that kind of stuff. And like I said, I'll do like a flavored seltzer water. I call it crispy water.
What about sodas and juices? What are the pros and cons of those?
Okay. So soda is just junk, right? That's the thing. And then even diet soda, it's just a bunch of like sucralose or other sweeteners in there that aren't really good for the microbiome. So we want our digestive system to be healthy. So that's something you want to avoid. And then juices, it really depends on the person. So I love fresh juicing when people actually make their own because it's nice and fresh. Or you can get like a cold pressed or something like that hasn't been pasteurized because they don't kill off all the enzymes. The only thing with fruit juice is that it's very concentrated in sugar versus if you were doing just a vegetable juice, the vegetable would be very low in sugar. So you just have to be careful how much you do of a actual fruit juice. And so as long as it's part of a, healthy meal plan in the day, that's good. I have some people like to do their little vegetable juice, detoxes where they'll do like 3 days of just juicing just to get themselves like a rest intestinally. So it really just depends on the person, what they're doing. If they're diabetic, I would not recommend doing fruit juice because it's just super concentrated. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You mentioned the microbiome, like how do you get, a better balance of good bacteria versus bad bacteria? And,
Okay.
I'm hearing more and more about how it impacts your nervous system, how it interacts with your brain, how it, how it allows you to digest well or digest poorly. Like, what are some of your insights on, good versus bad bacteria?
Yeah. Ooh. Okay. So we have like trillions and trillions of microbiome living in and on us all the time, right? We've got like fungus among us. We've got tons of different types of bacteria. We've got like little viruses living on us and all around us. So it's all doing this like balancing act. And so most of us are born with our set of microbiome or the microbes that we're going to have. Usually by the age of 3 years old, you pretty much have your balance that you're supposed to have. And we get a lot of it from our maternal. So mom's going to give us our microbiome. So if mom has a screwed up gut, you watch out because you might get a screwed up gut. So you have different strains, right? And there's tons of like stool kind of testing out there that can test that stuff for you too, if you wanted to see what your levels are. And it really just depends on the person. But the biggest thing is fiber. Fiber is what helps your microbiome kind of feed off of. It feeds off the fiber and then it gives off these byproducts. So one of them might be like butyrate, which is very, very healing and repairing of the intestinal lining, but it's also really helpful for your brain. So there's a lot of things that your body does that has these byproducts, and it kind of works with other parts of your body, right? And we know that when we have a low inflammatory diet and we're eating really low inflammatory and our digestive system isn't inflamed, it's probably nice and healthy and tight. You're probably absorbing a lot more nutrition or nutrients that way. Think about if you have something that's not working correctly, you're not going to be absorbing stuff, right? It's going to kind of fly right through you. So we need to have that healthy microbiome because it does keep our intestinal tract nice and healthy. healthy. We get more vitamins that way. Our immune system's protected. We have a lot less inflammation. So then people say, well, okay, can I just eat a bran muffin? And I would say, well, no, because you need a variety of different types of fibers. And this is what can get kind of crazy for people, that if they don't have a healthy microbiome, or they're having malabsorption issues, fiber can actually make them feel worse. So that would be where I have to actually go all the way back, start from the beginning with them and really start looking at what foods they're reacting to and allowing a healing process to happen to see if we can help reduce any malabsorption that's going on. So that's really important. And that's where probiotics are, that they came out and they're like, hey, we found out that these healthy people have these strains. There must be something to this, because these unhealthy people are missing these strains. So start studying all these different microbes and saying, this strain does this strain does that. And they're very, very specific. And then they just make combinations, right? This probiotic has 10 different strains in it. So kind of depends on what you're looking for. They do different things. And some of them like talk to your brain, right? So that's the thing with probiotics. And then if you ever see something that says prebiotic on it, that's just fiber.
Oh, okay.
Like, I've got prebiotics. I'm like, yeah, that's fiber. So that's what it is. Pre means you're just feeding the biotics. So you're feeding those bugs and they're having a party, eating it and giving off those byproducts. And the reason why people have issues with digestion is because either they're dumping too much into their digestive system too fast, like coming through the small intestines, having absorption issues, and then dumping into their large intestines, not supposed to be dumping in there. And then they get a lot of bloating and gas because the bacteria are like having a super party, okay? And they're giving off all these like byproducts. So we can have a little bit of flatulence, but you don't have like massive amounts of gas and popping open. So that's really important, is to make sure that that's not happening. And we don't know what triggers that stuff too. You can be born with kind of like a not so good microbiome and then eat really horrible on top of that. So now you're not getting that diversity. And then maybe you had a stressful moment, or maybe you had a bacterial infection or something just sets it off. And now all of a sudden your gut's kind of screwed up and you're like, oh, I've always had this all my life. It's like, well, you might have been born with like not so good microbiome, but you also might have had something happen that disrupted that. And you see a lot of this stuff with people that go on a lot of antibiotics too, because it wipes out a lot of your strains. And as we age, we sometimes lose some of our strains as well. So all kinds of weird things can happen at any time in your life.
Well, that's neat. I know sometimes with nutrition, people just get confused with, what works, what doesn't, people being told all sorts of contradictory things. They go on these fad diets. They end up unraveling after 30 days. People just get so overwhelmed. Like how can you as a nutritionist cut through the chatter, make things simple for people to implement, and have their successes?
Yeah, it's hard because there is so much information, right? It's like information overload. And that's the thing is when I'm meeting with somebody, I'm going through an assessment, like, I'll be talking about low inflammatory eating, but if that person can't eat certain things, I would have to adjust their meal plan for them, right? So not every single person, it's not one size fits all. Okay. So if someone wants to try a certain style of eating, maybe someone wants to go vegan, right? Because they're having it's a moral issue for them for whatever reason. And I have to teach them how to be vegan. I have a lot of vegan people who eat like crap. And they just eat like Doritos and bread and cereal and like some pizza or something. And I have to teach them about where they're going to get their protein sources from. They have to get a variety of fruits and vegetables. They have to get nuts and seeds. They have to have different types of foods so that they're making sure they're meeting their nutrient needs. So, and I just really want people to have more phytochemicals. So even if they're a meat eater and they're like, I'm going to do the carnivore diet. Well, here's the thing with the carnivore diet. Yeah, if you want to eat just meat, but the whole purpose of that is that you're eating quality meat. You're eating a meat that actually probably has phytonutrients in it because it's coming from an animal that probably wandered around and ate different types of things. You don't want to get like the kind of, conventional raised animals because they're not going to have a lot of nutrition in them. They'll have some protein and maybe some fat, but ultimately you're going to be starting to miss certain things. So that's where I have to educate people. Like, we still need to get phytonutrients. We need to have some fibers. And you'll even see some of these like extremist people that are online and they're like, oh, I'm doing carnivore diet. And all of a sudden you start seeing them like adding supplements in, and then they're like adding tubers, and then they're going to add this other food. Okay, so you're not completely strictly carnivore anymore because you got to do other things. All right. So yeah, and it depends on the person. I have some people that like do the keto and they like it. They just don't do a lot of carb. I find that most people when they do keto just tend to go into eating low carb. They're not really all the way in keto. So they're just eating lower carbohydrate type of diet plan, and it just feels good to them. My job would be, I need to make sure you're getting nutrition. Like, what are you eating? Like, what kinds of foods are you eating? What types of foods? Are you having any green things? Are they red or purple or blue? I don't know. Like, I need to see some color in here. Because I have a lot of people like, I just eat bacon and cheese. And I'm like, that's going to mess you up after a while. So they might not, they might feel better, like digestively. They might be like, oh, maybe I did have an issue with certain fibers and I feel good. Or they might do it and like do it for 2 years and all of a sudden things kind of flip and they're not good anymore because the microbiome starts to change. So they have to realize that what they're doing with their body might be good temporarily, but not necessarily long-term. I find that when people eat more of a variety of foods, low glycemic, really good nutrition, it's a little bit more manageable. You get more freedom that way too. And you get to like have fun with your food, create different recipes and stuff like that.
Yeah. What's your take on the intermittent fasting fad? Does it make a difference what time of day you eat your breakfast, your lunch, your din?
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
The studies are kind of all over the place with that. So, some people are like, I'm just going to do a water fast for 3 days, or there's some people like, I'm just going to not eat from this time of the day to this time of the day. Okay. Well, the really good studies, number one, you can get a lot of really good cell turnover, even just reducing your caloric intake. Like we know that fasting can also be done with just low cal intake, but we don't want to do that forever because then you're going to have low nutrition intake, right? Your nutrients will get low. So the intermittent fasting studies that were really, really good were showing the 15-hour fast that were in rhythm with your circadian rhythm. Okay, so like that whole moon and sun thing, like we have nighttime, we go to sleep. We have daytime, we're supposed to wake up. So we have our little circadian rhythm, which goes along with our hormones too, right? Your cortisol picks up in the morning. It's like your awake hormone. It does these little patterns throughout the day and it comes down at night. And then your melatonin comes up so that you get sleepy and go into rest. We do most of our cellular healing and turnover when we're sleeping. So that's why good sleep is awesome. And that's why people always feel like crap when they have like, well, I slept for 8 hours, but I woke up like 5 times, right? So getting that sleep is really important. So they say, let's see if we can get your melatonin to come up at a normal time. So how about we stop eating at 6, allow that melatonin to start creeping up. So by 10 o'clock, you're hopefully going to go to sleep. And then wake up in the morning and break your fast closer to like a 9 o'clock kind of thing, right? Like allow yourself to fast just a little bit in the morning. And that's a pretty good intermittent fast for most people. And there's different studies like showing like, maybe this one's good for hormones, or this is good for females, or this is good for people reducing belly fat. It's like, well, at the end of the day, you want to just be in rhythm to getting really good sleep. And then your window of your time that you're allowing yourself to eat, you want to make sure you're having nutrition there. I have some people who will undereat and they'll actually end up losing their lean body mass, right? They'll come in and we'll do a body composition. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're losing weight, but you're losing like your muscle tissue. We don't want to do that. So they learn that they can't just starve themselves either. And there's a fine line between fasting and then having an eating disorder.
Whoa.
Yeah. Like some people will hide behind that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, have you been able to successfully treat people who have eating disorders, and how have you been able to do it? Because it can be really, really serious illness for a lot of these folks.
It's very, very, very difficult. Okay. So, and it depends on the eating disorder, but most of them are stemmed in some kind of depression or anxiety, right? So there's an emotional component to that. There's microbiome stuff going on too. Sometimes they do have a change in their microbiome. And then there's just like the behavioral cultural stuff too that you have to look at. So they actually do really good with team approach, and most eating disorder centers will have like nursing staff. They'll have a dietitian. They'll be really, really monitoring some people, because some people that have to get over their fear of eating, like say if they're doing more of like anorexia, starvation stuff, the refeeding part can be really scary and it's extremely uncomfortable. So they almost have to force themselves to eat, which is very, very psychologically difficult for them. So they have to have the psychologist and the counselor. They have to be working on goals and pushing through that, like over, that refeeding part. And then there's other people who have like the total opposite, they're the Overeaters Anonymous, they go to those types of things where they have to be very, very strict. They can't eat any trigger foods because they have no control over it. So there's a huge psychological component. I usually don't work with them unless they're already seeing a counselor. I'm like, we're not working unless you're seeing a counselor on a regular basis. And sometimes I will get people who've gone through the center, they've gone through like the inpatient stuff, where they actually were staying there for a couple of weeks while they're trying to, help them regain their eating behaviors. And then they'll see me after. So I'm almost like the bridge. So that's just a different type of population. They're very difficult. There's a lot of addiction kind of tied to that. So there needs to be the behavior part and the psych stuff.
Oh, I'm sure. Wow. I mean, personally, what kind of foods do you like to eat and cook best, given your wealth of knowledge? What do you like to enjoy?
Everything. I love so much food. I love my good old sushi. Like I can go out and slap a piece of raw salmon or raw tuna and I'm all over that. But I like variety and I like colors. So when I go shopping, I always make sure I get different things. Like, oh, this chicken's gonna go with my broccoli because it's green, but I want to have orange, so I'm gonna do a sweet potato, like that kind of stuff. I love doing salads. I love doing all kinds of different salads. It really just everything. Stir fries. I'm wicked into seafood. I'm a seafood lover. Okay.
Same here.
Shrimp scallops, salmon. I don't care. Just put it in front of me. I'll eat it. Good old oysters. Yeah.
Oysters. Yeah. I had some yesterday. Yeah. There's a place in Marlboro. It's got $1 oysters. And yeah, I ended up, having 8 of them.
Shuck a buck or buck a shuck or whatever.
You can't turn down that deal.
Yeah. But I like flavors too. Like I like working with spices and herbs and just little things like that. It's amazing what your chicken can turn out to be if you just throw some garlic and some basil on it.
Nice and healthy, and I'm sure pretty tasty too. What kind of stuff do you have going on as far as your endeavors are concerned, like in the next year or two? Anything new on the horizon in that front?
I don't know, like things are kind of shifting and moving and shaking. So I think I'm probably going to be with the Army for a little bit longer. It's been a year and a half now, and they're just looking to expand it. And I think they're going to eventually, they're even trying to get like an entire like wellness building built for us, so like we can have our own building because they keep shuffling us around all over the place. So I think they're going to be expanding that, which is really interesting, kind of fun to see. So I don't know what that's going to look like. So, and they're, they might change the way they fund it and all that stuff too. So who knows? Or I might not. I might be like, nah, I'm going to go do something else. But I think I'm still really happy with my Eat Well and Beyond private practice. Just because I get to have so much fun in so many different areas. I talk to kids, I talk to elderly people, I get everybody, pregnant moms, all kinds of different people. So I do love my practice. And that's one of the reasons why I went into it, because I didn't want to be working anywhere that was going to like tie my hands in any way. Like I have a lot more freedom in my own private practice. I can, use the labs that I want to use. I don't have to, go through certain insurances or anything like that. Although I do take insurance, that's covered for a lot of benefits, people's benefits, to see a dietitian, which is kind of cool. So I think I'm gonna be doing this for a while, but I don't know. I'm always getting these offers. I just had one of my friends that works for a nutrition company for pediatric nutrition trying to recruit me.
Oh, wow.
But I'm like, I don't know if I want to go into sales. I haven't done that in a while. I don't know if I want to do that. But that's the cool thing about nutrition is there's so much out there. There's so much for people to do. If anybody wants to get into nutrition, you will not be bored. I love the functional medicine, area. So I love, going to different conferences and workshops. There's always something new that's coming out, learning about, different extract that does something, I've focused in a lot of different areas, from fitness. I've looked at, brain health, and then diabetes, and then like GI stuff. So I think I'm happy where I am right now.
What kind of fun stuff do you like to do outside of your nutritional endeavors?
Well, I like being outdoors. It's cold right now, so I don't want to be outdoors. But I love doing outdoorsy stuff, especially as it gets nice out. I mean, I just need to be in nature, kayaking, hiking, getting on my bike, anything that just puts me outside. But I also love just being social. I love hanging out with my girls. I like going to rock shows and stuff like that. That's fun. I love music, so if I can go out and if I'm going to go out to dinner and have something to eat, it'd be great to have like a band or somebody playing something like that's fun for me. Of course it's New Hampshire, right? So you got to like go with the seasons. So winter, well, I don't do too much. I just pretty much hang out with my kids and maybe break out the snowshoes if we ever get snow. And then we go in this, summertime, it's, go to the beach, go to the lake, do all that kind of stuff. But my kids keep me pretty busy too.
That's wonderful.
They're both pretty active people. So yeah.
Well, good stuff. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of same interests. Love hiking, kayaking, swimming, especially lakes. Love going to the beach. And, I've been to quite a few concerts over the years.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for, coming on the Jimmy Daytona show. How can people get a hold of you in case they need nutritional consultation, which I highly recommend, by the way?
Yeah, absolutely. My website's probably the easiest way to find me, eatwellandbeyond.com. And then you can actually just link right on if you want to set up an appointment. I have my little schedule online. You can pop in there, or you can always just call me, and my phone number is on my website too. So probably email is the best thing, because if I'm in the, with the army one day, or I'm in with patients, you're never going to catch me on the phone. So email is probably the best way to reach me.
Good stuff, Heather. Thank you so much for coming on the Jimmy Daytona show. And thank you very much for working with me the last 5 months. I've had a lot of success, and the best is yet to come on that. So
that's right.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful night.
Good. All right. You too, bud.
All right. Take care.
See ya.
Be seeing you.